Oh boy. All right, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are we doing? I will try to be energized tonight. It's been a while since I went live for something pretty serious. I won't wait too long for people to join and all of that, but I want to get right into this. I wore my Nimba Counter shirt today, and with the intention of making my video for Philadelphia County meet, but this ALS thing is still on my heart, and there's something about being a psychologist that when something like this happens, I just couldn't shake it off. I sent a post this morning, just wrote a little bit about it, and I had a few people send me DMs asking questions about this. So I decided I'm going to do a quick live about ALS, and hopefully it'll help someone, and hopefully it'll be knowledge that we can utilize for ourselves, for our families, for our loved ones. I believe that the reason I'm not able to shake this particular piece off is that I recently just walked with someone on this journey, um, and someone who was taking care of their loved one on this particular journey. And it's not easy, it's such a difficult diagnosis. So let me talk about it a little bit, okay? When it comes to ALS, a lot of times we are thinking, some people aren't even familiar with it. Let's start there. Some people are not familiar with ALS and what it is, what it causes. ALS is basically amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and some people call it Lou Gehrig's disease. All right. This is essentially a neurological disorder. All right. A neurodegenerative disorder, to be particular. And just in plain English, this is when the person's motor neurons that's responsible for movement, when it stops functioning, it stops firing as it should. So typically what ends up happening in these situations is the person starts to, their muscles start to weaken, they start to lose their muscle functions. All right, so it goes from uh, weakness in one's muscles to paralysis to now losing speech, and eventually losing their breath and life. It's very difficult. So when I think of ALS, I just want to say this. You see, there are certain illnesses that changes a person's life, and then there are illnesses that literally changes an entire family. And ALS is one of those illnesses. When most of us hear about ALS, we automatically go to muscle becoming weak. We think that someone about people, gradually losing their ability to talk, their ability to use their hands, and their ability to speak. All of those things are correct. That is essentially what ALS is about. But those who have lived through it or walked with someone through this journey understand that it's much more. It's much more than a neurological disease, right? It is something or a disease that impacts families. Those that are taking care of their loved ones with ALS can tell you how incredibly challenging this can be. All right. ALS changes the rhythm of every day. It transforms spouses into caregivers and children into becoming helpers. Oftentimes, people will start grieving their loved ones while they're still alive. And friends who have seen strong people, strong individuals, and have known them to be hardworking, they really struggle to know what to say when you encounter someone with ALS. Something to keep in mind is how rapid this moves, and to see someone, let's just say in the case of Chris Johnson, going from being one of the best running backs ever to now being someone who is paralyzed and they're speaking using a device. It's difficult. Imagine being the friend of someone like that. Friends will often tell me, I don't know what to say. I don't even know if I want to visit. I didn't even know if I want to go there, simply because guess what? It is a difficult, difficult illness. And then also, every small victory in ALS, when you're taking care of someone, becomes precious. But then every loss, every time someone loses a motor ability, it feels very much like a deep wound. So, one of the greatest misconceptions about ALS is that people with the disease disappear because they stop speaking. This is one of the hardest parts. I want us to keep in mind that silence does not mean absence. Just because a person loses their ability to speak doesn't mean they're no longer there. The thing to keep in mind about ALS is that while the person's body is not as functional, while they have lost movement in their body, while they have lost their ability to speak, their mind is still intact. So think of yourself being very much aware, very much alert, but trapped inside of your own body, frozen inside of your own body. Um, the key thing for those of us that are just watching this take place, or that we're caregivers, we're loved ones, something that's really important to keep in mind is that many people living with ALS remain mentally present. They still love, they still laugh, they still dream, they still recognize every face in the room, and they are still themselves even when their bodies can no longer express what their hearts long to say. So just imagine having your thoughts, your memories, your personalities, your humor, all of that intact while gradually losing your ability to communicate. That is not an easy feat at all. That's incredibly difficult. And if you've walked with someone or seen someone trying to navigate this journey of ALS, you can see it in their eyes that they're still there and they have so much to say, and they are unable to communicate that. It's really hard. It's really and truly hard. So the reality is we have to now rethink how we define dignity, because a lot of times when we define dignity in the context of, oh, the person is independent, then when someone loses their independence, it implies that they've also lost their dignity, and that's not the case, right? Dignity is not found in independence alone. No, dignity is found in how we treat each other. It's it is hmm, it's not just found in how we treat each other, it's being able to sit with someone even when you don't have any words to say. Hmm. It's found in learning new ways to communicate to someone who cannot communicate with you in the way that you were used to. Dignity is found in showing up and being able to slow down instead of rushing through things. It's found in refusing to look away when suffering becomes uncomfortable. Over the years, as I mentioned earlier, I've had the humbling experience of walking alongside families whose loved ones were living with ALS. And here's what I witnessed: I witnessed incredible courage, but I also witnessed profound exhaustion. Caregivers often carry invisible burdens. They learn medical terminology they never wanted to know anyway. They navigate feeding tubes, wheelchairs, communication devices, and endless appointments. They experience anticipatory grief. This is the heartbreaking reality of mourning someone while they're still present, because they know that this illness is fatal. Many continue showing up every single day with extraordinary, unshaken love. They deserve to be seen as well. One of the things that get missed sometimes is the idea that caregivers themselves are grieving and going through a lot and carrying the emotional pain of not just their own anticipatory grief, but the grief that they see in their loved one's eyes. They're carrying that as well. So when death finally comes, people sometimes assume that the family member's suffering has ended. And in many ways, truly, the journey has just begun. There is grief, there is relief, followed by grief, and then relief, and then guilt for feeling the grief. So, as you can imagine, there's a mixed emotion, right, that comes with the loss of someone to ALS, of a loved one to ALS. There are empty chairs where the person used to sit. There are quiet rooms. There are routines that the loved one has gotten accustomed to that no longer exist. And something to keep in mind is that healing is rarely linear. I can speak from experience that there are times where maybe it's a week after the loss and the person comes in and they appear to be all right. They're hanging in there. They're saying this isn't bad. They're saying to themselves, I'm doing what I need to do. I feel good. And then the next week, they're completely depressed. They're completely down. They are missing their loved ones. So healing doesn't look linear. There are times when you're okay. There are times when you're hurting. There are times when you're sad. There are times when you're angry as a caregiver who have lost someone to ALS. Healing unfolds one memory at a time, one conversation at a time, and one day at a time. There's something I want us all to kind of keep in mind is that ALS teaches us something that extends far beyond medicine. It reminds us that our values have never been dependent on productivity. I know that some people place all of their values in productivity, but the truth is our worth has never been measured by how fast we can walk, how clearly we can speak, or how much we've accomplished, despite what society has placed on us. But every single human being possesses inherent dignity because they are human. And this is my belief that we are dignified or we have dignity because we are human beings, not because of our achievements, not because we can speak, not because we can walk. That's why even individuals who may have some visible or invisible disabilities are, in fact, very much still dignified human beings, and we ought to treat them as such. So today, I just want to speak directly to those that are living with ALS. I want them to know that you're not forgotten. You're not defined by your disease. Your life continues to matter. And to every caregiver, your sacrifices matter. Your exhaustion is real. Your love is making a difference, even on those days when it doesn't feel like it's enough. And to every family that has buried someone they love, may you know that grief is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you are human. And it is evidence that you loved someone so deeply and that that love continues beyond their death. I've learned that healing doesn't always mean curing, right? We want healing to be equated to a cure, but sometimes, for example, in the case of ALS, healing isn't always about curing. Sometimes healing means finding meaning in the middle of heartbreak. Sometimes healing means allowing ourselves to be fully loved and to also love fully. even when we know that the loss is inevitable. Someone asked me earlier, does is this something that can be cured? Is this something that uh, can be managed? And the truth is, it ALS is fatal. Typically, once someone is diagnosed, from what I have seen, it moves rapidly. It moves rapidly from paralysis of the arms and then the legs, and then before you know it, you're losing your ability to speak, and just needing one medical device at a time. So there isn't any cure, and the loss or the passing or death is inevitable, barring any miracles, because I still believe in miracles. But sometimes healing simply means refusing to let someone's story end with their diagnosis. I pray that we continue to advocate for research. I pray that we continue to support caregivers. I pray that we continue to show compassion to family members navigating impossible circumstances. And above all, I pray that we never forget that behind every ALS is a person with a name, a family, a history, dreams, and a life that deserved to be honored and deserves to be honored. Because even when a disease changes a person's body, it never diminishes the worth of that person. I hope I was able to provide some overview of ALS to give you some insight as to how it impacts individuals who are diagnosed with ALS, as well as some insight about how caregivers may experience that journey of walking with someone with ALS. My biggest advice to you this evening or morning, wherever you are, is that if you know someone who is diagnosed with ALS, or if you know someone who is caring for someone diagnosed with ALS, your presence can be the greatest present you give to that person. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to offer uh, suggestions in the form of kind. It's okay to do things around the home for that person, to run errands, to take care of certain chores, to help them at doctor's appointments, to help them navigate the medical devices that they would use. It's okay. It's okay to be present. And so I hope and I pray that you get something from this mini conversation surrounding ALS. All right. If you have any other questions about it, as some of you did, yes, please do not hesitate to DM me and let me know what your questions are. And if I can answer it, I will be more than happy to answer it. Thank you and have a good day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world.